All right, looks like we are connected and we are live on Facebook now. Yay! I'm going to tell you what, it's been one of them days, guys. It's Monday all day. So, how many of you are excited to learn about multiple offer situations and how to win? I cannot guarantee you'll win them every time, but I can guarantee that if you apply some of these tips and techniques, you will get more of your fair share. So, if everyone, as you're coming in, would tell me where you are from, where you are watching from tonight. Also, tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you a new agent? Have you been in the business 2 to 3 years as an agent? How long have you been in the business? I know I've talked to several people lately who are waiting on their license. They haven't got their license yet. They are brand spanking new in the business. So tell me, are you brand spanking new? Are you an oldie but goodie like me? I've been in the business longer than I care to admit, almost 20 years. So tell me where you are tuning into from tonight. We're going to give people just a few minutes to get on. Before we get started, we are going to be talking about how to win multiple offer situations. Got lots of tactics to share with you tonight. Some of them you probably are already aware of, some of them you may not be. There may be a different twist on it that you are unfamiliar with. These are tactics that Dwayne and myself and our team have used over the years. In Middle Tennessee, it went from being a buyer's market in 2012 to quickly being a seller's market in 2013. And we have seen the seller's market pretty much nationwide for the last 7 to 8 years. And so you have to get creative when you're submitting offers to get your offer looked at. I'll never forget the first time I submitted an offer and I found out there were multiple offers on the table. I was like, wait, what? What do you mean there's multiple offers on the table? We have an offer. Take my offer. Why do you need other? And it was like my brain went like, whoa, what do we do with this information? And so you learn pretty quickly what works and what doesn't work. So I am sharing with everyone tonight what does work, what will work and has worked for me and Dwayne and other members of our team, other agents that we know and connect with. Hey, Kimberly, brand newish from Fontana, California. Hey, brand newish is great. We were all brand new at one point. I'll never forget my very first buyer that I worked with. She asked me, how long have you been in the business? And rather than to say a month, I said a day or two, jokingly, and I laughed, and it was really the truth. But she didn't press any further. So it's okay if you're brand new. Everybody has to start somewhere. Congratulations for being in the group and trying to learn from people who've gone before you and have already tried out multiple things and figured out what works. So looks like we've got quite a few people on now. If you have just jumped on, please let me know where you are watching from and how long you have been in the business. I would love to hear how long you've been in the business and where you're from. And we will get started here in just a minute. I'm going to be sharing a lot of things. It's going to be a quick fire tonight. So feel free to take notes, or you can wait for the replay and rewind and watch it again. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I see that Assad's watching as well. Hey, buddy, nice to see you on. Got quite a few more people. Love to hear where you guys are from. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. I'm Katrina, Henderson, Nevada, 16 years in the business. Awesome. You've been in almost as long as we have. So if you've got any tips or tricks, we'd love to hear those too. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. Give me just a second to figure out, get that down out of there, pop that up. So tonight we're going to talk about how to win in a multiple offer situation. I should have put almost every time because you're going to get that oddball agent that just does not respond to what you would think they would respond to. They've got ulterior motives and you can't help that. So We all know that inventory is a problem. I would say that 95% of you have an inventory issue in your market. And so obviously you want to know every tip, trick, advantage that you can possibly have. And so what are you doing to ensure your buyer's offer stands out every single time? What are you doing to make sure that no matter how many offers that seller has, whether it's 2 offers or 20 offers, I mean, I've heard of people having 35 offers before. What is the most offers you guys have heard of being on a property before? Go ahead and type that in the comments. The most offers you've ever heard of on one particular property. I want to hear your highest numbers. I think I heard 35 was the highest I heard at one point. I was like, I don't even want to be that listing agent. Like, nobody's trying to work that hard. So in a multiple offer situation, there is only one winner, and for all others, defeat. Nobody likes defeat. I do not like to be that agent that hears, sorry, we went with another offer. 3 out of 4 buyers blame their agent for losing the offer. They may not tell you, 1 out of 4 might, but 3 out of 4 buyers secretly are seething. They blame you because they lost the house. And 90%, now this like blew my mind when I heard this statistic, 90% of buyers will fire their agent or give up after the 3rd lost offer. They get so frustrated. They're so aggravated. You've drove them here, there, and everywhere to look at property. You've wrote multiple offers. They've sat on pins and needles. They're waiting. They're hoping and praying that their offer gets accepted. And after the 3rd time, they just can't throw their heart over their fence again. And so they fire their agent or give up. Typically, they just tell their agent, we're going to take a break from looking right now. That's the nice way of being fired. And when you circle back to them, chances are they've decided to rent for another year, or they've gone with another agent and they're under contract. So that's not a good feeling either. Now, lost business because they went elsewhere equals lost commissions for you, lost referrals. I mean, this buyer could have potentially referred their friends and family to you in the future, but now you've lost all that referral business. You've lost their repeat business because oftentimes 3 to 5 years from now, they're going to sell that house and buy another one. And if you're in the business long enough, you are going to get repeat business multiple times. I have sold property, bought and sold, helped people buy and sell property multiple times. In one situation, I had one client, I sold him 4 different properties over a 15-year period. One of them was an investment property. A lot of times he would live in a house for 3 to 5 years and then want to sell it and buy another one. And then he did eventually buy an investment property, and I sold the investment property for him. So a lot of times you will get that repeat business after you've been in the business a while. But let's not forget your lost time. Time, guys, you can't get that back. Every moment you spend on the phone with them, every email, every text, every time you showed them a property, every time you called them about a property, every time you wrote an offer, contacted the selling agent, followed up, all that time gone. Nobody likes to lose time. So I'm going to help you guys not have to go through this as much, okay? So some people say that winning isn't everything, blah, blah, blah. That's the losers, right? In a multiple offer situation, it's not just about you and your commission. It's about your client's hopes, dreams, and goals. It's the difference between them feeling secure in a home that they love or laying in bed at night worrying, where are they going to live? When, a lot of times people, they have something coming up that's causing them to move. The house that they're renting is being sold, or maybe they've outgrown the property and they need to move and they're worried. They're laying there worrying if they're going to, where are they going to live? What are they going to do? So in essence, you are their team leader, and the verbiage that you use in the offer is the strategy that you use to win. Now, tactic number 1, and I call this a tactic because surprisingly, we have discovered there are agents that do not use the automation that's available to them through their MLS. And I'm just like, really? Like, it's been there for years. I'll never forget when they first came out with this, when you could go in and type in someone's name, email address, their search criteria, how big of a house do they want, how many bedrooms, how many baths. You can even narrow it down by zip code, whether it was a 1 level, 2 level, had a garage, didn't have a garage, how big the lot was, all of this criteria that you could go in and enter in. And every single day, it would scour the MLS looking for a property that meets this criteria and email it to you and your client. And so this was a huge time saver. That was probably around the 2003 timeframe, around 2003. I'll never forget, we were in a company meeting, and another realtor who had been in the business much longer than us, who actually remembered when the MLS sheets were in a book that looked like a phone book. They didn't have, the computer where you could go in and look up homes. You literally had to rip the sheet out of the book. She was so excited when she heard about this automation. It was called CyberHound back then. And she's like, CyberHound? Oh my goodness. And she was so excited. And all of a sudden I'm like, what is this? What is she talking about? And guys, if you're not using your MLS's automation, you are wasting time and energy, and you are leaving money on the table, and you are not doing your buyer a very good service, because when those homes hit the market, they go fast. And the people who are set up on automation are getting those notifications. They are contacting their buyer and saying, did you get that house? Did you see that one that just came on the market? Or the buyer is contacting the agent and saying, hey, that house that you just sent me, because it looks like it's coming from you, let's go see that. And so this allows you and your buyer to know as soon as it hits the market. And sometimes, I don't know about your MLS, but our MLS will allow you to be notified 3 times a day. And so you can wake up first thing in the morning and get notification at 9 a.m. that, whatever property has hit the market since the last notification, which would have been like 6 p.m. the night before, because you do have some agents that are up late at night entering things into the MLS. Then you've got middle of the day. So those agents who got up first thing in the morning and then put it on, you're not missing out. You're not having to wait till 9 o'clock the next day or 6 p.m. that night. But then you've got agents who are putting it on in the afternoon. And so you're constantly getting these email notifications. And not only that, when there's been a huge price change. Now, obviously, you're not going to see a price drop. So that's probably not going to be relevant in this case. But don't assume your client saw the email, okay? Don't think you saw the email. You thought, oh, this would be a great property for them. But they didn't call. They didn't text. They didn't email you. Don't assume that they saw it and didn't want to see the property. Call them and say, did you see this property? When are you available? Can we see it on your lunch break if you're available? And go see the property. Now, tactic number 2, you want to think outside the box. So this may not have anything to do with multiple offer situations, but this is going to open up opportunities for you to show more property to your buyer, which ultimately is going to lead to a multiple offer situation. So this is kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg. So you got to find the property first, right? And so I threw this in here for you guys. If your client, let's say they're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home that has 1,500 square feet or larger, don't just put that in your search criteria. There are a lot of homes out there that can be tweaked to meet their criteria. So I came up with a few examples here. Let's say you find, a lot of these 1970s ranch style homes are smaller, but they have unfinished basements in a lot of parts of the country. You'll have basement homes. And so let's say you find 1,000 square foot home with a full unfinished basement. That basement can be finished out, and that house can become a 2,000 square foot home. So if they're looking for 1,500 square feet, this could work for them. I've seen some pretty nice finishes on basements. It really just depends on the house. I mean, if it's one of those basements that's down in the earth and there's no windows and it's kind of damp and smelly, that's not going to work. I'm talking about like a walkout basement that's got some windows and things like that that can be finished out really nicely. Unfortunately, sometimes you can't tell by the pictures, so you do have to go in person. But this is a way to kind of open up some options for your buyer rather than sticking to that 1,500 square feet or larger. Let's think outside of the box a little bit. And so let's take a 2-bedroom home, for example. They're in this example, they're looking for 3 bedrooms, but don't limit yourself to that. Look for 2-bedroom homes that have a separate den or dining room that could be converted to a 3rd bedroom. You know, I've seen dens that actually should have been a bedroom, but they just took the closet out and made it into a den. Do you know how cheap and easy it is for somebody to add a closet or to add a window or to throw up a door? You know, a lot of people don't use dining rooms anymore. In fact, in my home, my dining room easily could be converted into a bedroom. It's nice and square, and the location in the home, I could easily have a 5th bedroom if I didn't want my dining room. So think outside of the box a little bit. You know, they're ultimately looking for space. That's why they want the 3 bedrooms. So look for rooms that are not, you know, 100% necessary. Then let's take the example where, you know, they're saying we want 2 full baths. Okay, a lot of people are stuck on that. Well, I have seen homes that had 1.5 baths. You know, the half bath had the sink and the toilet. It was just missing the tub and the shower. Well, if you've got a very large bedroom on the other side of that wall, or maybe a very large closet that you couldn't, you know, you wouldn't miss a whole lot of the space if you just popped the tub in, you know, that's just a couple of $1,000s to convert it to a 2nd bathroom. And they're buying the property at the pricing of a 1.5 bath home, but now the extra money they're spending to convert it to a 2 bath actually just bumped the value because you broke into a whole different range of comps. And so the money that you spend to convert it to a 2 bath, they get that money back and then some. And so that's a really good outside of the box way of finding a home for a client that, you know, otherwise you're in an inventory problem. That's a great way to solve that problem. Also, look at garages. Now, garages can be converted. I've seen some that were converted well. I've seen some that were not. And so normally if I'm suggesting to someone that they look at a 2-bedroom home that has a garage that can be converted, I'm looking at having them convert that to a master suite. Because garages are typically pretty large. You're looking at 200 to 300 square feet. And so maybe you want to do a really nice master suite in an office, or master suite in a den, or maybe the home doesn't have a dining room. Just be careful when you're suggesting to a buyer to convert a garage into living space. Number one, that it's allowed in the county or the city. Number two, that it doesn't just kill your comps, because it is kind of hard for an appraiser to appraise a home in a market where most homes have a garage and then you're converting it into living space. So a lot of times people think, oh, if I convert the garage to living space, that's going to increase my price per square foot. Yes, in theory it does. But if all the homes in that market have garages and you just took the garage away, that could hurt you. But if you're in a situation where they could add another garage, maybe even a detached garage onto the property, that will offset that a little. And that's something they can do down the road. If they don't have to have the garage right then, that's something that they can do later. Maybe refinance in 3 years and cash out and do that garage. So moving on, unfinished space in the attic or above the garage can sometimes be converted into a 3rd bedroom or bath. It really just depends on the roof pitch. Also depends on the structure of the home, you know, what type of 2x4s and things that they used in the property. A smaller home in a hot neighborhood being added onto will give the buyer instant equity. What?
Your PowerPoint's not showing.
What's showing?
You've been talking the whole entire time.
Well, what did I do wrong? Hold on, guys. Why are you just not telling me? Do I click here?
Yeah. We go over every week.
I'm not a tech person, guys. I am so sorry. You guys did not see my PowerPoint. Okay, now we are screen sharing. You didn't get to see all this. I got to show you this slide, guys. I got to go back. This is the funny one. In a multiple offer situation, there's only one winner. For all others is defeat. Y'all could not miss that slide. Okay. Back to the slide that I was on. A smaller home in a hot neighborhood being added onto will give the buyer instant equity and the space. So for example, in this case, they're looking for a 1,500 square foot home. And let's say you find them a 1,200 square foot home in a neighborhood that maybe the homes are going for $200 a square foot there, but you can actually get it built for say $120 a square foot. So they want to add that extra 300 square foot on. Hey guys, for 36 grand, they can make that house big enough for what they want. And at $200 a square foot, they have $60,000 equity already added to that property. So it costs them 36 to get 60. So you got to think outside of the box in these multiple offer situations. You have to go looking for homes that maybe other people aren't looking for, that they're not thinking about, homes that can easily be tweaked and converted to solve that problem. All right, moving on. Let me get back over here and click on that. Tactic number 3, act fast. Time is of the essence. The fastest bird gets the worm. Dropping everything to go show your client the perfect home can make all the difference. If you delay a day or even hours, you can miss out on your buyer's dream home. In a seller's market where inventory is low, you and your client cannot afford to wait. Use their lunch break as a time to go. Immediately after work can be effective, but just remember, everybody else is usually getting off around the same time as your buyer, and they're wanting to go see that property as well. And tactic 4, I'm going to take a second just to get a drink, guys. These presentations, they really wear me out on that. I talk all day as it is, so I need a break. All right, tactic number 4, write the offer immediately. Don't let your buyer go home and think about it. It is your job to convey to them the importance of being swift. Have your laptop or your tablet with you. I mean, I remember back in the day, I used to have a little trifold brochure holder, and I had my contracts printed with me everywhere I went. So if somebody wanted to write an offer, boom, there was no excuse not to write that offer and get signatures. You have to strike while the iron's hot. And so I've even sat at the seller's table at the house and wrote the offer. Or if you're running behind, or you've only got a 30-minute window, or let's just say it's just going to take longer, go to a coffee shop close by. But do not go home and write the offer and then send it. You can lose an hour or two just by waiting. Every second counts in a multiple offer situation. Tactic number 5, communicate with the seller's agent. Half of the agents don't even call. I mean, when I have a listing and I know it's going to be a multiple offer situation and agents just start sending me offers, I typically do not really push the ones that didn't call me. I need to know that the agent that I'm working with is going to communicate. I need to know that they're on top of things. So if somebody just sends me, like if I'm the listing agent and the offer comes through and it's just the contract and I don't have any of the disclosures, no pre-approval letter, and they didn't call me, I don't care what's in that offer. I'm already getting a bad vibe about this agent. And it kind of makes me wonder, do they really know what they're doing? Are they going to be trouble? Are they going to be complicated? Am I going to have to chase them down? Because they just seem like they just haphazardly threw me this offer. You see what I'm saying? So think about it from their perspective too. Call the agent. Be friendly with them. Be helpful. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. It's the same. I know that you think, oh, well, we should all work together as agents. This is true. But I'm going to tell you right now, if I've had a bad experience with another agent, I don't forget that. And if I see their name come across again, I'm going to have a moment. I'm going to be like, the last time I dealt with this agent, we had this problem, and I couldn't get them on the phone, and they wouldn't send me the paperwork. And then we had this problem during inspection, and I'm going to be like, I don't know about that. But if I've had a pleasant experience with that agent before, I'm going to be like, oh, it's so and so. I love her. Oh my gosh, she is on it. She sends me the paperwork. She calls me when she says she's going to. I don't have to chase her down. I know that she's telling her seller what the seller needs to hear or the buyer needs to hear, because that's the other part of it. You know, a lot of times your frustration, your struggles, the things that you go through as an agent is coming from the other agent not properly informing their client of the process. And so, you know, if you've got an experienced agent who is informing their client of what to expect along the way, you're going to have less problems. And so you'll get to kind of know the agents in your area, because 80% of the business is being done by 20% of the agents. And so after a while, you'll kind of get a feel for who, you know, who's who and what they do and how they work. So, but you need to let the seller's agent know the offer is coming, even before you send it. Hey, we're sending over an offer. You should have it in about 2 hours or an hour or whatever your time frame is to get it to them. And then ask them, how do you prefer me to send this offer? A lot of times in the MLS and the comments, it's going to say, please email all offers to this email address by this date and time. Okay, that's fine. But, you know, just make sure you can just reaffirm that. You can say, oh, I see that you said you want all offers sent to Kathy at remax.com or whatever the email address is. So just, you can reaffirm that. Give them everything up front, like your disclosures, your pre-approval letter, everything. Give them a complete file from the beginning. I know it's a lot of work. Okay. But if you've got all of your documents like prepackaged in your files, like in your folder, I don't know if you're using AuthentiSign or DocuSign or what you're using as far as, you know, how you're pulling all of your documents in for signatures. But a lot of these apps and programs will allow you to have, you know, like repeat files, repeat forms that you use on a regular basis. Like you can have them all in one place where you can like drag and drop or click and then just fill in the blanks. Well, I know that when like I said before, if I get a complete file from the agent, everything is signed, everything is dated, I got the pre-approval letter, it's all nice and neat and it's all there, I'm going to be like, all right, I've already got the documents. All I got to do is get my seller to sign this and we're done. You know, to me, that's more appealing, honestly. And I know, and it says to the seller's agent, I know what I'm doing and this will be a smooth transaction. Here's all the documents. Now, this one might, some of you are probably like me. You're not going to be the type of person that really likes to throw out compliments and flatter people, but flatter them. Tell them they did a great job on the listing and, you know, that you can tell that they're experienced. You know, just say something nice about them. It just makes them feel good about working with you. Obviously, if you didn't like the way the listing looked, don't lie about it. But I mean, obviously, there is something you can find about the situation that you like that what they did, and so compliment them on that. Follow up to make sure they receive the paperwork. Don't email your offer and not follow up. Oh my goodness, it could have went to their spam or their junk folder. You don't want to assume that they got it and they didn't get it and they never looked at it. I mean, please follow up to make sure they got the paperwork. And don't be overly pushy or friendly or helpful, because that can come across a little weird too. So just, there's a balance. You should be able to know what that is based on the situation. Tactic number 6, using an acceleration clause. This one has been used a lot. I'm not going to lie. Dwayne and I were probably some of the first agents to use this in Nashville. But now everybody uses it everywhere. And to be honest with you, a lot of listing agents are immune to it. However, depending on the market, you know, maybe your buyer has multiple properties to consider. Maybe maybe properties are coming on the market every single day and you don't want to sit and wait 72 hours or until the open house has been completed 3 to 4 days from now before you hear back from the seller. I mean, come on, leverage is leverage, but that's taking it too far. So let's say, let's say today was March the 14th. It's not, but let's say it was. And you're writing up an offer. You could use a clause like, time is of the essence. Please respond to this offer by March 15th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Put the year. Don't skimp out and not put the year, because that could be interpreted as next year. Be very specific on your date and your time. Don't just put 24 hours from receiving this offer, because you don't know when they receive the offer. Put a date and a time. This tells the seller and the seller's agent that they need to respond quickly to your offer. It takes away their ability to sit and wait on other offers. Now, like I said, this does not work 100% of the time. There are some agents that are like, I'm going to get 30 offers on this property. Your offer can just fall through the cracks for all I care. I'm not rushing to make my seller decide yay or nay on your offer when I've got 30 more coming and one of them might be better. That can and will happen probably 50% of the time. So this probably not the best tactic to use anymore. It did work well for a while, but depending on your market, you may try it. Tactic number 7, highest and best. Of course, everybody knows what highest and best is now. When Dwayne and I first started experiencing this problem with multiple offers, we quickly started doing highest and best before anybody else said anything about it. We were just like, hey, let's jump high. Let's jump over list price and get it. So let's say a property hits your MLS and it's $299,900, and you know that property is going to receive multiple offers. The listing may even say bring highest and best offer. Well, the reason is they're going to line them all up in a row and pick the one that benefits their client the most. So you kind of have to think from a seller's perspective, what are they looking at? Now, we all know that the property is only going to appraise for so much. It may appraise for $320 if you're lucky, $325 maybe. So with that in mind, what's stopping you from offering more? What if you offer 25% more than list price? I mean, this is a little crazy. I'm not recommending this. I'm just using this as an example. But what if you offered $75,000 above list price? That would be crazy, right? Well, not really, because if your client wants the property and they can qualify for that amount, would they not be willing to pay that if it appraised? But what if it doesn't appraise that high? That's always the question. What if it doesn't appraise that high? Well, it's not. It's not going to appraise that high. It's just not. So, but let's say it appraised for $340. Well, would your buyer still be willing to pay that? I use a rule of thumb. I know interest rates change. They go up, they go down. Throughout the years, I've seen it as low down in the 3s and all the way up in the 7s. In a 20-year real estate career, you're going to see interest rates go all over the place. But my rule of thumb is roughly $5 for every 1,000 on your mortgage. And so if it's $10,000, you're looking at an extra $50 a month. Well, in this case, you'd be looking at an extra $200 a month. Well, in a seller's market, homes are appreciating at a rate of at least 5%. Industry standard was 3%. I know markets right now that are seeing 8 to 10%. So in 1 year's time on a $300,000 property, if they saw a 10% appreciation, that's going to be $30,000. In 2 years, they'd be looking at over $60,000 appreciation. And so at this point, it's kind of a mood point whether you paid $300 or $320 or $340 for the house, because they're appreciating faster than they used to anyway. But you have to really break it down for your buyer. You have to say, how bad do you want this house? Are you willing to pay an extra $200 per month for this property? And they may be. And if they are, then this is a great strategy to use. Now, keep in mind, a lot of buyers are not putting 20% down, so they're paying PMI. If you're in a market where you're getting that 8 to 10% appreciation in about 2 years, 3 max, they're going to have 20% equity anyway. so they can refinance and drop that PMI, which is probably going to be about $200 a month. And so really it's just a temporary thing. They're paying an extra $200 a month to lock that house down, but in 2 to 3 years they can refinance and drop it. So it's kind of how you word it and how you explain it to your buyer. You kind of have to know, you need to know, first of all, the difference in payment. Even if you have to call the loan officer yourself and say, can you tell me what the difference in payment would be? Can they qualify for that? And then explain the difference to your buyer. I've literally had people where I said, it's good if you jump high and you offer, say, 20,000 more, it's only going to cost you an extra $100 a month. Are you willing to lose this house for $100 a month? They're like, no. If it's just $100 a month, yeah, we can make that happen. We want this house. Boom, there you have it. You just have to explain it to them, and they have to be on board with you. Now, the good news is, no matter how high you jump, the buyer cannot qualify for more than the amount it appraises for. So in that case, you want to make sure you have a financing contingency in place. Tactic number 8, which leads us to financing. Each state is different and not all contracts are worded the same. So you're going to need to read the financing section to see if this will apply to you. If you're a seller, and let's say you've got 5 offers in front of you, with 3 of them being FHA and 2 of them being conventional, which offer are you going to give more weight to? The conventional offers, of course. So if your client is planning on going FHA, do not put that in the contract. If they can qualify for conventional, because it's really just boils down to, their down payment. Are they doing 3.5% down or 5% down? A lot of people go FHA because they don't have 5%, but maybe they do. Maybe they do have the 5%. They can qualify for conventional. They just don't want to. Well, don't put that in the contract, because if they can qualify for conventional, then they can. You're not lying. They can qualify for conventional. Just make sure that they got pre-approved for conventional. So you can always change your financing. I've seen people change lenders in the middle of a contract. So once the contract's accepted, there is nothing that states, unless it is written in your contract. I have not seen one yet that says this. There's nothing that says that they cannot change loan programs. Now, there may be, there's some agents out there who've been doing this a day or two, and they may personally write that in, or your state may say that, and I haven't seen that before. That's why it's up to you to do a little bit of due diligence and know what your state says about it, what your contract says about, changing loan programs. So for me, I always put conventional. I don't care what loan program they end up going with. If they can qualify for a conventional loan, which most people who qualify FHA or VA are going to qualify conventional the majority of the time, I just do a conventional pre-approval. And then once the contract's accepted, if they want to change programs and go FHA, that's fine. That's up to them. That's their prerogative. 62% of buyers change their loan programs midstream anyway. So again, unless your state or contract says something about that, it's a moot point. Tactic number 9, earnest money. This can be a tiebreaker. The more money your buyer can put down as earnest money, the better. And if your buyer is going with tactic 11, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and bringing their own closing costs to the table, then why not have them put it down as earnest money? They got to bring it anyway. So go ahead and put it down. Just be sure that you have several contingencies in place, such as inspection and or financing, if you are going to do that, if you're going to put that much down. Rule of thumb, I've seen people, 1%. So if it's $300,000 property, 1% is $3,000. But if you know that everybody else is doing 1%, go a little bit over that. So if it's, if you think everybody else is going off the rule of thumb and it would be 3,000, put 35, have them put 3,500 down. As long as you've got some contingencies in place, you can get their earnest money back should the deal fall through. Tactic number 10, the closing date. The sooner the better, especially if you combine it with tactic 12, which we'll go over here in a minute. Sellers do not want drawn out, delayed closings. They just want it over with. So if your buyer is already pre-qualified and has submitted all documentation for approval to the lender, you should be able to close in as little as 3 weeks. Now, when I say submitted all documentation to the lender, I'm talking about they've given them their bank statements, they've given them their tax returns, they have their W-2s, their 1099s, their pay stubs, everything they're going to need. They're not waiting for anything to come from the IRS or their employer or their bank. It's all been gathered and submitted. You want to get this done ahead of time. You want to make sure that you've got a good loan officer you're working with. Make sure that your buyer is fully aware that this can make or break the deal, that they need to get everything over as quickly as possible. And so if you're worried about needing more time, don't worry about it, because honestly, you're trying to win the offer at this point. Quit trying to look ahead to the future and say, oh, we can't close in 3 weeks. What if this and what if that? You know what? Even when you put 4 weeks or 30 days or 45 days on a contract, it doesn't always work out, right? And so what do as agents? We ask for extensions. If you have a seller and a buyer who've already agreed to do business together, you've already got an accepted ratified contract, and you're 2 weeks into the process, and all of a sudden you're like, this thing's not closing next week. What do? The same thing you do if you wrote 30 days to closing. You ask for an extension. The seller has 2 choices. They could put it back on the market and start over with a new buyer who most likely is going to take 30 days, or they can go ahead and give you the extension and wait another week. What do you think they're going to do? Do you think they want to make another mortgage payment? No. You think they want to pay more taxes and utilities? No. They're going to go with the quickest path to closing, which at this point would be your client if you needed an extension. Now, a lot of times you run into issues with inspection and the repairs. And so I just usually, all that kind of times out about the same. And so if we're asking for repairs on the inspection, we typically go ahead and submit an extension at that time. And we package it in a way that we want to give the seller time to find a good contractor so it doesn't cost them a lot, because we don't want them to feel pressured or rushed. And so there's ways that you can use those type of things to help you get more time if you need it as well. Now, again, this is only going to work if your buyer's already got all of their documentation over to the lender. Tactic number 11, closing costs. I mentioned this earlier. Don't ask for them. If your buyer can pay the closing costs, do not ask for closing costs. I know that it's customary for sellers to pay closing costs, but not in a seller's market. In the seller's market, they're looking at highest and best. If they're asking $300,000 for the property and they're paying a 6% real estate commission, they know how to use a calculator, and they're going to deduct that commission, that $18,000 from the $300,000. And so now they're walking away with $282,000. Well, if you're coming and asking for $8,000 in closing costs, they're not walking away with $282,000. They're walking away with $274,000. Now, the guy next to your offer, the other offer, they're not asking for closing costs. So it may be all about numbers. It may all be included, but it's still coming out of their equity. And so it is the buyer's closing costs. It's their expense. So it's not unheard of for a buyer to pay their own closing costs. It's just that we got so accustomed to sellers paying it when it was a buyer's market. It's not anymore. So don't get hung up on that. If they can pay their own closing costs, great. Now, you want to sweeten the pot, offer to pay the seller's closing cost. Now, that might sound crazy, especially to some of you who have been in the business for very long. But when it comes right down to it, if you've got 2 offers, one of them's your client's and another one next to them, and they literally look identical on paper, and the only thing different is that your buyer is willing to pay the seller's closing costs, which could be, $2 to $3 grand. Who do you think the seller's going to go with? Your offer. So it may cost your buyer an extra $2 to $3 grand to get the deal, but they got the deal. And every month that passes that they don't get a property, they're paying $2,000 to $3,000 more for it in the long run anyway. So why not go ahead and suck it up and do it now and get the house they want? So it's just a little tactic. Maybe it's a little bit of an edge that it gives you to win that offer. Number 12, offer to rent back to the seller. Now, I've bought and sold many properties, and there is nothing that stresses me out more than a simultaneous close. When I'm selling my house and I'm closing on Friday, and I'm buying another house, closing the same day, we call that a simultaneous close. Guess what? The person buying the house that I'm selling, they want keys that day. Guess what? The house I'm buying, if it's not new construction, because sometimes I do buy existing homes, guess what? They haven't moved out yet. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to want to paint. I might want to put in new flooring. There may be something else, a major thing I want to do, like countertops or tile. Maybe I just want somebody to come in and clean it really good. It's really hard to go and rent a U-Haul, pack everything up, get it in there, go to closing, have the house clean and ready for the new buyer to take it, and then you got to rush back across town to unload the U-Haul into the new house. That doesn't give you any time. That does not give that buyer any time to do anything they want to do to that house before they unload all their stuff into it. So if you've got a seller who is selling and buying another property, which 9 times out of 10 they are, if you rent back to them, if you convince your buyer that this might be the one thing that will cause them to go with their offer, is to let them live there 30 days for free or rent back. It's not going to cost your buyer technically anything. I mean, it does cost them on paper, but they're not physically coming out of pocket, because it's a good 30 to 45 days before their first payments due, right, on their mortgage, because there's, you got that interest and arrears. So what's it going to hurt unless their lease is up? But I mean, honestly, at that point, they're going to want to do everything they can to get this house because they need a place to live. So it's just a little something extra that might set your offer apart from the others. Honestly, you're going to want to combine some of these. You may not want to just focus on one or two. You may want to do 3 or 4 of these things. So these are just suggestions. Tactic number 13, waive or limit the inspection. Sellers are 90% of the time, that's my own statistic, are usually concerned about the inspection. You do not know how many listings I have taken where it came up. What about inspection? Well, the roof's 10 years old and I'm not putting a new roof on. Well, the HVAC is 9 years old. I'm not putting in a new HVAC. Oh my goodness, the times I've heard those type things. Or what if there's a leak? What if they find a leak? What if they find something wrong? They're just worried, because what they perceive when they hear inspection, they hear, I'm going to lose some money. Money's going out the window. Now, I'll tell you what we did on one of our properties, and it works well, is we limited the amount of money that we were willing to give the buyer for repairs. We said $1,000. Now, it came back and it was like $3,000 worth of stuff. It was mostly had to do with the windows. It was weird stuff, stuff that there's no way we could have known. And they came back and said, meet us in the middle. Can we renegotiate and you give us $1,500? We were like, okay, fine. So from a seller's perspective, going into a contract, if you think that you're limited to $1,000 in repairs, that no matter what that repairs, that inspection comes back and says they're not going to ask you for more than $1,000, that's a sigh of relief, because as a seller, you're like, okay, because let's face it, from the time you accept the contract until you get the inspection report back, it's about 2 weeks now, because it takes these inspectors, by the time you order it, you get your earnest money, you get everything settled, you order it, it's 7 to 10 days before they even come out, and then they got to get the report. So you're looking at 2 weeks. So that seller is willing, they'd rather have that peace of mind. Now you can waive the inspection. I don't recommend this because your buyer needs to know what's wrong with that property. You do have a fiduciary responsibility to your buyer. And so you do not want to set yourself up for a lawsuit by any means. You want to represent them the best way you can. It's not always just about getting the offer. You got to make sure that they're protected through the process too. So you may not want to waive the inspection, but you may just want to reserve the right that should something come up during the inspection, that they can still get their earnest money back if it's just too much. If you come back and you find out that the roof is leaking and the HVAC is literally on its last leg and all these things, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be $20,000. They can't afford it, and they just want to walk from the deal at that point. Well, at least then they can still have that option if you have the inspection. Some agents are doing as is. I'm not going to do that. I just can't do that for a buyer. I mean, if they're a handyman and they do construction for a living and they insist on, I'll take it as is. Okay, fine, we'll do that. I still do like to have some sort of contingency in there just in case to help them get out of the deal should it be just catastrophic on the inspection report. I've seen crawl space issues come up on inspection reports that you're like, holy cow, they're going to have to do a French drain and tear out the crawl space and redo it. The house is dropped half an inch on the back side. I mean, those kind of things, guys, pop up on inspections and your heart drops in your stomach. You do not want your buyer tied to that. You still want to give them an out. Tactic number 14, don't ask for anything else. Oh my goodness. We had a buyer ask for random stuff in our house one time. It was like $1,000 worth of stuff. And it wasn't anything that I was personally attached to. I was just annoyed. I was just so annoyed. They offered us $5,000 below list. They asked for $8,000 in closing costs. Then they wanted $1,000 worth of random stuff. It was like, are you buying a house or are you buying my stuff? And so think about it from a seller's perspective. They're already on edge about the whole thing, right? So when you start throwing in weird stuff like we want the grill and the couch and the TV on the wall and the curtains in the bonus room, it just gets weird. So just leave all of that out of it. Besides, the lenders don't like it anyway. They frown upon it. Tactic number 15, and this one I actually learned from a dear friend of mine. I love this. It's just so sweet. Have your buyer write a letter to the seller. Have it be personalized, telling them how much they love the house and how their family is going to just love the home. Have them write about all the things that they envision doing in the home. Sometimes people are sentimental about their house. The last house that we moved from, I really didn't care who bought it. But the house before that was the house we raised our kids in the majority of their childhood. We had a lot of memories there. We had a swimming pool and it was 5 bedrooms, 3,300 square foot. We were like the neighborhood buzz in that house. And there was just constant good energy going through that house. And I just didn't want it going to anybody. I wanted a family to have it. And so I can see how this can push somebody over. If you've got 2 offers, you've narrowed it down to, again, let's say you're one of those offers and the other one, and they're very similar, but your offer has a letter that tells this seller how much your buyer loves their house and they really want to raise their family or spend their time, their retirement years there, or whatever their situation is. That might touch that seller's heart. And they may say, I want them to have it because they're going to love and appreciate this home as much as we did, especially if it's an older home that's been customized and there's been a lot done to it. And you could tell the people had pride of home ownership. They really dig that. They love it. Tactic number 16. Everybody breathe. Offer to take less commission. Some of you are like me. You're like, I'm not working for less. I am worth every penny. Well, this is true, but sometimes some commission is better than no commission because a lot of sellers, they're looking at that bottom line. And so you can offer to take 1% less. You may do a dollar amount. You may say $1,000 off or $500 off, just whatever you feel comfortable with. Like if you were gonna make $6,000 off the deal, say you'll take 1,000 off, so you're still making $5,000. That's a nice round number, right? I know it stinks, especially in a lot of markets where the agent has taken the listing at 5% and they're only offering you 2.5%, or maybe they're only offering you 2% already. I mean, just remember, if your buyer decides to give up and they just decide not to look anymore, you've lost all that time and you've made zero commission. So sometimes something's better than nothing, and you may get referral business and repeat business in the future from them, but you can't get that referral business and repeat business if you don't close the first deal. So sometimes you got to take a hit for the greater good. So just a suggestion. I personally have only done this once, but it worked. So it can work. Tactic number 17, offered to pay the difference between appraised amount and contract. Again, I have used this strategy. I had a buyer, they were moving from out of state. They found a house they wanted. It was listed for $260. They offered $275. The seller and the seller's agent came to us and said, we will take your offer, but should it not appraise for $275, are you willing to pay the difference between the appraised amount and the $275? And at that point, we had to get a little creative. So I asked my buyer, what if it appraises for $240? Are you willing to bring $35,000 to the table? He said, no, I can't do that. I said, what can you do? He said, I can bring $15,000 to the table. I'm willing to do that. So we did an addendum. And we said, okay, fine, we'll do, if it appraises for $260 or more, we'll pay the difference. Well, guess what? It appraised for $260. So he did. He ended up bringing $15,000 to the table. Crazy, crazy story. And the seller made $15,000 more than he would have made with another offer, because a lot of people are not in a position to do this. But again, if you look at what it costs a buyer to wait another year, because a lot of times their lease is up and they're just going to rent another year and try again later, the market's gone up 3%, 5%. So now that $300,000 house isn't $300,000 anymore. Guess what? It's $310. It's $315. And so if they're in a position to pay the difference, they can go ahead and lock that price in now, lock their mortgage in. That payment will never change if they're on a fixed rate. Even though the market's going up, guess what? Their payment's not. They're locked in. So it's better for them to buy now than to wait. So you got to get creative. You got to do whatever it takes to get them in that house now, because it's going to cost them more in the future if they don't. So if you have enjoyed this training and you would like to learn more, I would love to chat with you on a complimentary 15-minute triage call. I will screen your current business plan just like a doctor that checks their patient's health. Now, during our chat, I will go over the life force of your business, where you currently are, where you want to be. At that point, I'll offer suggestions and help you move in the right direction. I do have limited availability. I do book up fast. So if you would like a link to my calendar, I'd like you to go ahead at this point and comment calendar, and a member of my team will get that link over to you. So go ahead. I'm going to take a little water break. Type in the comments calendar if you would like to get on my calendar for a 15-minute triage call. Whew, that water's good. Now, before we end tonight, I want to leave you with one final tactic to help you win offers. Tactic number 18, ask the selling agent what the seller wants. Sometimes the best solution is the simplest one. If you know the seller is relocating out of state and they need time to find a place, then you know to use tactic number 12. If you know that this is an estate sale and the daughter is handling the sale of her childhood home, tactic number 15, writing a letter, might be the deciding factor. If the home is older and in need of repair and the seller cannot afford to do any repairs, then tactic number 13 might cause you to win, because they don't want to have to pay out a whole bunch of money on inspection. It never hurts to ask. Sometimes it's the difference of just having a conversation with that listing agent and asking. So, guys, I hope that this training tonight has helped you. I hope that you have learned something new, something that's going to help you win some business. Obviously, if you try one of these tactics and you win the offer, I want to hear about it. I want you to message me or post in the group and let me know, hey, Amanda, I used tactic number 12 or tactic number 9 and my offer got accepted. I want to hear about your successes, guys. And if anybody's got any other tactics, tips, or tricks that you use to win multiple offers situations, please comment in this video and let me know. And if you're watching the replay, please let me know that you're watching this on the replay. And again, if you would like to get on my calendar for a 15-minute triage call, type calendar in the comments. Guys, I thank you for being on tonight and or watching the replay. I wish you all the luck in your business and God bless you. And if you've got any comments or questions, feel free to go ahead and post them at any time, whether you're on the live or on the replay, and we'll have someone answer those questions. It'll either be myself, Dwayne, or a member of our team. Thanks again, guys, and I look forward to helping you in the future with your real estate business. God bless.